Yeah, fan fiction is a bit of a no-go area for me.
You do keep a folder of edited, maybe slash fiction, though, right? Or you
Tell us a little bit more about how the fandom has changed for you over the past year and how you've progressed in terms of art.
That's a good question. I guess the biggest change of the fandom, I mean, there has been sort of like we were just talking about less attendees at conventions,
Yeah.
like the major conventions, but I think what happens is the people who show up then tend to be the hardcores.
Yeah.
So like the conventions, if they're smaller, if they're larger, I tend to always like business-wise do the same, and so like the people I talk to tend to be the same kind of people. The people that have dropped off tend to be more like the looky-loos, you know, the people that are just like, oh, that sounds like an interesting thing, I'll go check it out, or they sort of got into ponies for a little while. So the people that I run into at conventions now are like, they know the comics, you know, like whereas at the peak, you know, if I talk to like 10 people, you know, one or two would know that there were comics. And now I'll talk to people that just know like stuff that happened in the last issue that came out, you know, 2 weeks ago or something.
Yeah.
They're up on the stuff.
Okay. Speaking of comics, which was your favorite issue to work on?
I really like I just drew this Nightmare Nights thing that has like Daybreaker and Tempest Shadow and Princess Luna in it. It's like fun, sort of like edgelord, you know, like dark, edgy characters to draw. You know, like not my favorite characters to read necessarily, but like just to draw. Like you can sort of let loose with that sort of thing. So I liked working on that a lot.
And who would you say your favorite character is to write and to read?
Well, the only one I've written, I wrote like one issue that came out and one like a short story that is just in a drawer somewhere. So I've written Rarity and Rainbow Dash and Little Strongheart, the Buffalo, and Spike. I like writing Spike and Rarity a lot, but nobody, I mean, I got it on my phone, you could see it, but nobody else is going to see it unless they put out some sort of lost, like, you know, lost tapes type situation.
Okay.
My favorite comic I worked on was, I wrote and drew one myself, and then Sarah Richard did like painted interludes in it. It was about Little Strongheart, the Buffalo, and Rainbow Dash, and that was a lot of fun. Just because I like making a comic from soup to nuts myself, you know, like.
Yeah.
I mean, Heather Breckle still colored it, and like I said, Sarah worked on it too. Somebody else lettered it, so it wasn't like I turned in the final thing that I hand lettered myself, but I did, you know, like come up with the concept and then wrote it and then drew it. So that was fun, and I felt like I got to really sort of do what my version of it would be, you know. Like
Yeah.
When I'm just doing the drawing, I'm sort of helping somebody else make their story, and then this was just me getting to like. If I were to do it, here's what I would do all the way through.
Speaking of soup to nuts, duck soup to nuts, would you say that the Looney Tunes had any influence on your art or your writing?
I don't know. I mean, I like Chuck Jones stuff a lot, and I like, you know, like I of course watched the Looney Tunes, and I'm the age where Tiny Toons was actually pretty influential because I'm 39. So like Tiny Toons was like right when I was 11. You know, like that was happening. And then Space Jam I'm a little too old for, so like right in the pocket for Tiny Toons. And then Looney Tunes was still on TV Saturday mornings when I was growing up, so like I had a lot of it that way. But animation wise, I found myself more influenced by the 90s Disney stuff, like the like the Glenn Keane stuff and like Don Bluth cartoons from the
Hmm.
90s. I like the early like 2D DreamWorks stuff a lot. Like I feel like that sort of feature-length animation stuff more than shorts is sort of what my jam is.
Yeah.
The Hunchback of Notre Dame and like
Hmm.
the Prince of Egypt and that era.
Yeah. Is there any particular film or TV show that stands out for you in that way?
Cartoons?
Yes.
Well, Batman obviously is pretty fundamental
Hmm.
for everybody that's my age. You know,
Yeah.
like that was a wild thing to come on in the afternoon. You know, like used to
Yeah.
be just like this is when DuckTales comes on, and then now it's just like, oh wow, this is really brutal and dark.
Yeah.
Why are they doing this? Yeah.
As for live action TV or anything else?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I watch a lot of TV, but I work so much that I oftentimes am watching it like out of the corner of my eye. You know, like
Yeah.
I don't actually get to see it. So the last stuff I watched, I'm keeping up on True Detective right now, and I watched Killing Eve. Like I watched it with both my eyeballs at the same time. But everything else, like I'm either way behind on it or I will never see it. Like I've never seen Lost because I was just working and like,
Yeah.
now I don't have 6 seasons or whatever
Yeah.
to get caught up.
Do you have any notable influences? What was your biggest influence on your sense of humor that you put in the comics? You know,
I don't know. I mean, my sense of humor in comics is just my sense of humor regular, you know, and that came from growing up a little fat kid, you know. So like, I could either get beat up or I could be funny, and so I was just funny.
Yeah.
And so, you know, so I just like, you know, whatever stand-up comedians were on TV when I was a, you know, 8-year-old, and then like when I was right at the same age where I sort of found comic books, there was also like Clerks was sort of like important to me, and I sort of went down that like Kevin Smith rabbit hole for a long time, and then like Howard Stern, back when like, you know, all I was just like hormones, and then here was just like this hilarious pervert.
Yeah.
So like that was my jam for a while. I don't really know what I mean, I love Dave Chappelle right now. All my heroes, like everybody that was influential to me, it turns out is just like a total monster. So
Yeah.
I'm sort of hoping that Dave Chappelle doesn't someday turn out to be a
Yeah.
total piece of, like a total monster. Because like, you know, like I love Louis C.K., I love Woody Allen, you know, like all these things. I'm just like, oh no.
I know there's been a lot in the news lately.
Yeah. Everybody's
Yeah.
horrible.
Who would you say, out of just any comic book artist or writer, was the biggest influence on you? Biggest impact?
Artist, there's this guy that doesn't draw comics very much anymore, but in the 90s when I was way into it, sort of had like this explosion. His name was Joe Madureira. He does video games now. He does this, he just did a video game based on his old comics called Battle Chasers. And he was just incredible. And he still, to this day, like if I could draw like anything, I'd draw like that guy. But then there's also like a million other guys. Like I get influenced by somebody new every day, you know, or like you'll like somebody's work and then you'll find out who they liked, and then you'll be like, oh god, that guy's even better, you know. And so it's just sort of like you just fall through these rabbit holes. But yeah, my influences and that stuff go deep and in all kinds of weird directions. Like my bookshelves are very strange or my Google is like, if you look at my search history, it just looks like a total lunatic because it's just like things that don't look like they go together. And then also you often have to photo reference stuff.
Yeah.
So it'll just be like horses jumping over fence, and then it'll cut right to, you know, like a 1950s toaster.
Yeah.
Just very random stuff. And writing wise, there's a writer who's like the biggest guy in comics. I don't know if he still is, but for a long time he was. His name is Brian Bendis, and he had like a message board and community in the early 2000s that was like very sort of like a place where a lot of people were sort of young upstarts trying to figure their stuff out, you know, like this. And a lot of people were very, like, heavily influenced by that guy, and I definitely was too, because he did like sort of conversational dialogue that people hadn't done in comics that same way before. So stuff where like you leave in a lot of the stutter speak or the ums and the ahs.
Yeah.
People sound like how they sound in real life, or like a stylized version of it, you know, like an Aaron Sorkin type
Yeah.
of thing.
Okay. In terms of characters, who do you say was the most challenging to write and the most fun to write?
And I always find it harder to write somebody who doesn't have like who doesn't get conversational,
Yeah.
you know. And for the sake of ponies, like I said, I've only written like 2 things, but like in my case, then it would be like the Buffalo Chief, like
Okay.
Stronghoof or whatever his name is. He was pretty straightforward and brief. Like,
Yeah.
he just said a man of very few words.
Who was your favorite character to draw? Most fun characters to draw?
So it comes down to, like, I like drawing the princesses a lot, and like I said, I like drawing like those sort of like darker, more actiony characters like a Tempest. But also I like drawing Pinkie Pie a lot because I can sort of have fun. You know, you can bounce her around and sort of put her in weird positions and situations. I like doing Spike because he's got fingers, and that is a nice, you know, after I do like a whole several issues with no fingers that have somebody in there that can just pick up a broom or something, it's like, oh, thank God this guy's
Yeah.
here.
Are there any characters you found particularly challenging to draw?
For the longest time, and still I guess, Fluttershy, who is very simple in almost every way to draw. Like, if I told a kid to draw all the ponies, the one I could recognize easiest would be Fluttershy, but her eyes are very, very specific, and it's the sort of thing where, like, if they're 1 millimeter off, then it looks completely wrong, so I have a lot of trouble with her. Lauren Faust said that her favorite to draw was Fluttershy, and the easiest eyes for her to draw. And I was like, I don't know how you can say that. And she was like, well, because I've been drawing those eyeballs since I was 14 years old. I was like, I guess that makes sense.